A picture is worth 1,000 words, but sometimes even some seemingly innocent and innocuous images have pretty dark and sinister backgrounds. A joyful, happy-faced photo of a normal family can be hiding what could be some of the darkest moments in history. Here are the 15 photos with disturbing backstories, and these are not for the faint of heart or Disney fans. Let's begin with number 15. The Rothschild Surrealist Ball. It wasn't just the costumes, it was the atmosphere, the eerie calm beneath the surreal excess. The 1972 Surrealist Ball, hosted by Baroness Marie-Helene de Rothschild, wasn't some ordinary night of wealth and theater, held at the family's Château de Ferrières. The event was an invitation-only gathering for Europe's elite, draped in masks, antlers, and headpieces that felt closer to ritual than celebration. The guest list read like a fantasy novel: Salvador Dali with a wax mustache and Audrey Hepburn hidden behind a birdcage veil. The decor mirrored Dali's mind: disembodied limbs, inverted rooms, and tables lined with edible human sculptures. One infamous dessert resembled a naked woman sculpted from sugar, detailed down to the eyelashes. While conspiracy theories about the Rothschilds have always simmered, events like this didn't help their cause. With every opulent costume and camera flash smile, the line between art, theater, and something darker blurred. What makes the photo unsettling isn't what you see, it's what you'll never know about the moments that followed when the cameras were put down. Number 14. David A. Johnston, Mount St. Helens. Smiling in the sunlight with a notebook in his lap, David A. Johnston didn't look like someone about to make history with his death. As a volcanologist studying the increasingly restless Mount St. Helens, he had taken the weekend shift to monitor seismic activity from a nearby ridge. 13 hours later, the volcano erupted with catastrophic force, unleashing a lateral blast that wiped out everything in its path. Johnston's final words came through a radio transmission: "Vancouver, Vancouver, this is it." Then silence. His remains were never found. The photo that remains, taken by his student Harry Glicken, who'd swapped shifts with Johnston to attend a job interview, shows a man deep in his element, unaware of what the mountain had planned. Glicken would later return to the field and die during another volcanic eruption in Japan. The image of Johnston still resonates not just because of how he died, but because of how fully alive he was right before the earth swallowed him whole. Number 13. The eruption of Mount St. Helens. Robert Landsberg didn't run. When this beast erupted in 1980, it unleashed a blast powerful enough to flatten forests and darken skies, but he stayed put. As a photographer, he'd come to capture nature's fury, but as the mountain exploded and ash turned the air into concrete, he understood this would be his final frame. He used the last seconds of his life to document everything he could, snapping shot after shot while the ground shook beneath him. Then, with chilling clarity, he tucked the camera into his backpack, laid it down, and used his body to shield it from the blast. Days later, rescuers found him dead, still curled over the bag. Inside were the final photographs of a man who chose to bear witness, even as the world caved in around him. His images survived where he didn't, grainy, silent testimonies of what it means to choose documentation over escape. In the end, he didn't just take pictures, he became part of history's ash. Number 12. The Dating Game Killer. The set of The Dating Game was meant to be light, flirty, and forgettable, just another game show pushing smiles for the camera. But in 1978, it unknowingly gave airtime to a monster. Standing beside Bachelorette Cheryl Bradshaw was Rodney Alcala, a smooth-talking photographer introduced with cheesy charm and vague talents. What no one knew at the time was that he was already deep into a killing spree, luring women with promises of photo shoots and then turning every session into a sadistic ritual. Alcala was known to strangle his victims until they passed out, only to let them breathe again, repeating the process until he finally killed them. Cheryl sensed something off. After picking him on the show, she changed her mind and never went on the date. That gut feeling may have saved her life. He would later be convicted of 7 murders, though police believe the actual number is far higher. This image is scary. Number 11. Omagh bombing, 1998. In the center of a crowded Northern Ireland street, a man beams beneath his son's weight, both wrapped in the glow of summer. The photo, snapped just before tragedy, captures a brief, impossible moment of peace. Behind them sits a red car, unremarkable in every way, except for the 500 pounds of explosives hidden inside. That vehicle was placed there by the real IRA, a dissident group that rejected the peace process of the Good Friday Agreement. The blast tore through the town of Omagh moments later, killing 29 people and injuring over 200. Windows shattered, bodies were thrown. The photographer who captured that moment died in the explosion. Somehow, the man and his son survived, but this image remains, frozen in time, proof of how ordinary seconds can become extraordinary in the worst way. It isn't the explosion that makes this haunting, it's the smile, the innocence, the sheer lack of warning. In the middle of war's long shadow, that one photo holds everything peace was trying to protect. Number 10. Serial killer John Wayne Gacy. As an infant, it's a photo that shouldn't carry weight. Just a soft-eyed baby in a high chair, captured in a quiet moment long before memory sets in. But this particular child would grow into one of the most sadistic serial killers in American history. John Wayne Gacy, known later as the Killer Clown, raped, tortured, and murdered at least 33 boys and young men before burying many of them beneath his suburban home. Looking at this photo now, it's hard not to feel unsettled. It forces a question that doesn't have a clean answer: what was already written in him and what was written onto him by the world. There's nothing sinister in the photo itself, nothing unusual about the chubby face or the distant gaze. But knowing where this life would lead makes the innocence feel hollow, even false. This isn't a chilling image because of how it looks, it's because of what came next, and the realization that monsters can look ordinary until it's far too late. Number 9. The Shadow of Hiroshima. The bomb didn't just destroy a city. It erased people so totally that all that remained were their outlines. When the atomic bomb detonated above Hiroshima on August 6, 1945, it unleashed heat and light with such intensity that it burned human shadows into concrete. One of the most haunting of these images shows the exact imprint of a person who had been sitting on a set of steps near a building's edge. Now nothing but a blackened silhouette on the wall behind them. There was no time to run, no moment to scream. The explosion vaporized flesh and bone, leaving behind only an eerie contrast where the human form had blocked the blast's thermal rays. That shape is all that remains of a life. No name, no voice, just a silent reminder of nuclear war's ability to obliterate without a trace. The photo doesn't need color or chaos. Its horror lies in stillness, the absence of what should have been a body, and the unbearable quiet left in its place. Number 8. The Romanov family, 1914. There's a silence in this photo that lingers. Taken just before the fall of Imperial Russia, this family portrait of the Romanovs looks like any other: elegant poses, warm gazes, a father flanked by daughters and heir. Tsar Nicholas II sits upright, trying to hold together a dynasty that's already slipping through his fingers. 2 years after this image was captured, they would all be dead, shot, stabbed, and beaten in a dark basement by Bolsheviks, who viewed them as the final thread of a crumbling regime. There were no last words recorded, just the clatter of execution echoing off the stone. The tragedy didn't stop with death. It echoed through generations, retold as a lesson, a myth, a warning. In this photo, it's the children's expressions that stay with you. Soft smiles, unaware of history's weight, frozen in innocence. They had no idea their story was already over. That's what makes this picture so disturbing and unsettling. Number 7. Dutch Girls of Panama. The photo feels like a travel blog entry. 2 friends, bright-eyed and barefoot in the wild beauty of Panama, taking a selfie before heading into the forest. Chris Krimmers and Lisanne Frone disappeared just hours later. They were last seen hiking the El Pianista Trail on April 1, 2014. When they failed to show for a meeting the next day, no one panicked. But days turned to weeks. Searches turned up nothing. Then a backpack surfaced, dry, intact, and handed in by a local. Inside were 2 phones and a camera. The call logs showed failed attempts to dial emergency numbers just hours after the hike began. Most haunting was the camera. It held nearly 100 photos taken deep in the jungle, between 1 and 4 a.m., flashes into nothing, as if someone was trying to light the way or signal for help. One showed Chris's head smeared with blood. Later, scattered remains were discovered. Bones, a boot with a foot inside. No one knows how they died. Numbers X. Katharina Detzel sips straw man. Inside a German asylum at the start of the 20th century, one woman turned her madness into creation. Katharina Detzel, institutionalized for political protest and later diagnosed with delusions, tore apart her mattress and began crafting a human figure out of straw. The result was unnerving: limp limbs, a hollow chest, an expressionless face slumped forward like a puppet drained of will. But this wasn't just the product of boredom or madness. It was her protest, her surrogate companion, her unspoken defiance. In a time when women were silenced and locked away for stepping outside societal lines, Katharina's figure stood as a symbol of what couldn't be suppressed. The photo of her with the straw man feels more like a ghost story than a patient record. It's art born from suffering, unsettling because it refuses to fit neatly into sanity or insanity. That straw figure wasn't just a dummy, it was her voice, her friends, and everything. Number 5. The Lipstick Killer Sips Message. When police arrived at the apartment of Frances Brown in December 1945, they found more than just a murder scene. Scrawled across the wall in crimson lipstick was a message that chilled everyone who saw it. "For heaven's sake, catch me before I kill more. I cannot control myself." The handwriting was shaky, frantic, and unmistakably real. The killer would later be identified as William Herons, a 17-year-old with a troubled past and a mind unraveling under the weight of impulse and delusion. He confessed to killing 3 women, though controversy still surrounds the case. But the photo of that lipstick plea became the defining image of the investigation. There's no blood in the frame, no victim's face, just a wall and the scrawl of a killer begging for help through the chaos. It wasn't bravado. It read more like a cry for rescue from inside a collapsing psyche. Well, humans can be crazy, but doing this thing is beyond humans. Number 4. A shell-shocked soldier of World War I. What the camera captured that day wasn't a soldier. It was a ghost in uniform, trapped between life and the trench that broke him. Taken in 1916 during the Battle of Flers-Courcelette, this photo shows a man physically present but mentally shattered, his eyes vacant, mouth slightly agape, his entire posture collapsed inward as though trying to retreat into himself. He had survived the shelling, but not without cost. The term shell shock was still new, and no one fully understood what war could do to a human mind. Back then, men like him were dismissed, even mocked, called cowards or hysterics. But what he suffered was real, his brain fractured by relentless artillery blasts, fear, and loss. That photo became a lasting emblem of a generation sacrificed in mud, gas, and noise. He may have left the battlefield alive, but the war never left him. Behind that 1,000-yard stare is a story too common, too buried, and too quietly carried home by those who were never truly the same again. What do you think about it? Let us know. Number 3. The hellish café of 1920s Paris. Beneath the glamour and jazz of 1920s Paris, tucked away in the shadows of Montmartre, there was a café that welcomed guests through the mouth of hell itself. The entrance to Café de l'Enfer was sculpted like a demon's jaws, and what waited inside was even stranger. Red lights flickered over skeletal furniture, candles bled wax from decapitated busts, and the waiters didn't smile, they snarled. Dressed in horns and black cloaks, they guided patrons through a macabre fantasy meant to imitate the underworld. The drinks were oddly named, the menus handwritten in Gothic script, and the air thick with incense and theatrical dread. Some visited for novelty, others to test their nerves, but most left with something clinging to their thoughts. Locals whispered rumors of strange accidents and lingering curses. Whether any of that was true didn't matter. What the cafe offered wasn't entertainment, it was discomfort, carefully constructed and served with wine. And even now, a century later, its legacy still breathes beneath Paris, waiting for nightfall. Number 2. The Hilo Tsunami of 1946. The sea didn't rise with rage, it crept forward with eerie silence. On April 1st, 1946, a massive earthquake struck the seafloor near Alaska, sending a tsunami racing through the Pacific. By the time it reached Hilo, Hawaii, hours later, the water had become a wall. 13 stories tall, moving with the force of a bomb, it struck the coast without mercy. Streets vanished. Homes became wreckage. More than 170 people lost their lives. The image taken that day, black and white, grainy, haunting, shows what looks like a peaceful waterfront until your eyes drift to the bottom left corner. There, in the path of the rising chaos, is a solitary figure caught in their final moments. It's unclear who they were or if they saw it coming. What makes the photo so disturbing isn't just the scale of the disaster, but the stillness before impact. That one frozen second holds 1,000 echoes because nothing in the picture screams. It just stares back. Number 1. The Amityville Ghost Boy. The camera had no hands behind it. It was set to go off automatically, capturing the quiet, vacant rooms of the Amityville house after dark. Ed and Lorraine Warren, famed paranormal investigators, had come to document the unexplained, responding to claims from the Lutz family that something still lingered after the DeFeo murders. One photo from that night shows a narrow hallway with a figure peeking out from a bedroom. It looks like a boy. His eyes reflect light, glowing unnaturally, his face eerily still. The Warrens believed it was the ghost of John DeFeo, the youngest child killed by his brother in that house. Others called it a hoax, pointing to shadows, angles, or a staged image. But no one ever found proof of a person being present during that frame. Whether spirit or coincidence, the image endures not because it convinces but because it unsettles. It's not loud or cinematic, it's quiet. And it leaves behind the sense that whatever stared out from that doorway might still be waiting there. If you found this video interesting, be sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for hanging with us, and we'll see you soon.